Cool. So we're recording the session. Yeah, let's get started with our pairs. So I haven't done any updates from last week. I know we didn't have a proper session last week because the network was bugging with us. But it's nothing. But we missed out on nothing really besides US30 because that's the only pair that was really at our points of interest or really came into our points of interest that we were actually able to trade anyway. So otherwise, let's get into things, guys. So on AUDCAD, higher time frame, everything kind of still remains the same. So since we still have last week's analysis, what I'll do is I'll just delete whatever's not relevant for the discussion this week and leave whatever's still relevant. So we still have momentum to the upside. We're still in this corrective structure, or at least maybe we can say we was maybe in this corrective structure. But nonetheless, we can see first touch there, second touch there. This is some sort of a third touch region. So naturally so, we are looking for some sort of bullish momentum. Otherwise, we can clearly see price action closed on Friday, at least Friday. We saw a lot of sell bias momentum on these pairs. So we saw Friday basically closing outside of our structure. So all we're going to do, since we didn't trade last week, let's just delete all of this. Or at least I didn't trade these pairs last week. When we drop down onto the 4 hour, I think I should maybe kind of just explain why I didn't trade these pairs last week, and then we'll get into what's the update for this week. So on AUDCAD, basically, okay, for most of the pairs, the reason why I didn't trade them, I think the only pair that was kind of close to was Susien. Susien, we'll get to Susien, but I think Susien was maybe setting up on Friday or maybe for this week, but I think Susien should be hot. But otherwise, most of these pairs, we were basically waiting for price action to either give us a reversal structure or to give us momentum to the upside, basically breaking back into any one of these smaller structures, whatever the case was. So since we saw a whole lot of sell bias momentum, we obviously naturally don't want to sell or we don't want to buy into obvious sellers that are involved in the market right now. We want the market or we want price action to give us an indication that buyers, or at least there aren't anyone, or at least that price action is stalling. Either obviously we're going to stall to either continue to the downside, or we're going to stall to then obviously maybe change momentum to the upside. So we've been waiting for that either corrective structure or reversal structure to form. That's kind of why I chose to just exercise patience on my currency pairs last week. But otherwise, update on these pairs. Excuse me. Let's just do this so we can delete this. Cool. Update on these pairs, guys. We finally have a structure that we can see on our 4 hour. Obviously, we've been corrective around our support trend line there. So we need to observe some sort of a corrective structure. Why is this thing saying templates here? I don't know what's that. Let me just remove indicators if they are. Okay, cool. There we go. That was our issue. Anyway, continuing, let's just draw a corrective structure. Obviously, we isolate our lower highs because it's some sort of a descending structure because we have lows, highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, and then obviously it's a higher high, but nonetheless lower than this previous high. And then obviously right now where we're coming down towards our support of this overall structure that we are isolating. So taking into account also our important support, and you guys can see we've got a nice first touch, second touch, and obviously where do our bullish bias probabilities increase? At some sort of a third touch of our structure. What do we also have to increase, or at least information for us to work off? We've also got this nice low over here. Obviously, we've got a low, we've got a POI. Our price action or our job then becomes simple. We either wait for reversal structures, which means our double bottoms, inverse head and shoulders, whatever it is, doesn't really matter. We wait for our reversal structures down low. If we don't find any reversal structures below this low, we wait for the momentum to push price action back above the low. And obviously we then look for continuation structures for that upside momentum. Our job becomes simple when we have a POI and a level to work off. So AUDCAD, this is kind of the setup. I am still bullish bias on AUDCAD, taking into account where I am higher time frame. Yes, I do understand that there are a bunch of sellers, but nonetheless, we exercise patience to wait for a structure to increase the probabilities for us to trade against the overall momentum that we see there. Cool. Let's go on to the next pair. So next pair, we're going on to Aussie Swiss franc. So I'll keep on in between every pair. I'll just come and check the chats just to make sure that we're all good. If there are any questions in the chats, if they're relevant to the analysis that we were doing, we'll answer them before we move on. Otherwise, if they're not relevant, then we'll come back to them when we're done with the overall analysis. So otherwise, on Aussie Swiss franc, what we chose to do is just focus on the most recent price action. Most recent price action, basically, we had some sort of a descending structure where we were looking at some sort of a first touch there, a second touch there, and we were taking into account that, okay, price is coming towards a third touch region on a smaller time frame. Obviously, yes, taking into account what's on the daily, maybe before we move down onto a 4-hour, is daily. We saw price action coming up to this previous support that could obviously function as resistance. And we do see a nice daily reaction from this area. So still we see maybe sellers still being in control, obviously buyers being able or buyers not being able to push price action above a level, because obviously what do we have here? Nice big bullish engulfing, which means someone decided to buy at that level. So we know that at around this price region, maybe there's buyers that are waiting to buy. And we can clearly see that there are more sellers currently involved in this market because buyers weren't able to push price back in the territory that they were previously excited to be in. So taking into account that information and we're dropping down onto a smaller time frame, I will still be trading the overall structure, but obviously we have information that tells us that there aren't a lot of buyers yet. And what we should be doing is waiting maybe for those reduced risk entries. Obviously, if we're trying to trade against this overall momentum, which maybe I probably will still be doing. But maybe what I kind of want to do, maybe just to update the structure, is take into account as well this resistance that we have there. Delete this over here. And then just look, or rather just focus on the fact that we have extreme lows over here. And obviously, they are, since we've been corrective around there, we can delete that. And we have extreme highs over here. So what I want to do naturally, obviously, when I have extreme lows and extreme highs, I want to look for bullish bias trading opportunities at the lows. And obviously, I want to look for bearish bias trading opportunities at the highs. Since I'm not looking for, we can also delete this as well. Not relevant anymore. Since we are looking maybe for bullish bias price action, considering the overall structure that's here, we can clearly see that, okay, cool, maybe buyers are not in the market as yet. It narrows down the situations that will allow us to involve ourselves. Either we are seeing price action giving us some sort of a chart pattern at our low, because where do I want to buy? I want to buy at some sort of a support. I have a support there. Obviously, I know that if price action is below this support, I can't really be looking to buy. I would rather wait for a reduced risk entry above this support, because I want to see price action where in buyer's territory, where I saw other buyers buying from above that support. I didn't see anyone buying below this support. So that's kind of naturally where I want to buy. So overall, what I'm gonna do is I'm still gonna exercise a lot of patience, maybe on this AUD base pair, specifically Aussie Swiss franc. I guess a little bit more hotter for us to be focused. Things are very simple. Things are very clear. So it's going to be higher on the watch list or priority list than AUD Swiss franc. Why? Because this still requires us to wait for that pattern to form, to wait for price action to still come to this area, to show us those rejections or to show us whatever for us to be able to involve ourselves. So yes, I am bullish bias, but what I'll do is I will just remove this because it's not going to be on the watch list for the week. What I want to do is I just want to keep whatever's important highlighted and whatever's not highlighted. Cool. Let's go on to some AJ. So anyway, from AJ last week, we were obviously looking for some sell bias trading opportunities. Why? Ascending structure. In this ascending structure, we've got a nice first touch, second touch, third touch here at our resistance trend line. Obviously, price action broke back below this extreme high over here. So naturally, we want to wait for price action to maybe retest in and around this area here for the momentum to come into the market. Obviously, if we just came into the most recent price action here, so these PRIs here are still very much relevant for us because price action still has not tapped into those PRIs. Going down onto a 4-hour, maybe let's also just delete this over here. Going down onto a 4-hour, basically what I want to do is I want to take into account that the most recent 4-hour structure is obviously moving to the downside. So let's just do this so that we know where we are within the structure. We have extreme low right here. Let's just make it even a little bit thicker than the other line. We have an extreme low down there and we have an extreme high up here. So right now, where is price action? Price action is in between an extreme low and an extreme high. Cool. We've got that context down. Now, if we come to just the most recent 4-hour structure, we can obviously see that things are downtrending. We've got lows, lower highs, new lower lows, lower highs, and obviously lower lows. So we can see that things are clearly moving to the downside. So we want to take into account what kind of a downtrend do we have? Is this downtrend aggressive? Is this downtrend whatever, steep, whatever the case is? So what I want to do is, for now, let's not take into account this. Let's just wait and see if we need to include this into our structure like this, because obviously we don't have a swing low or anything there as yet. We don't have price action maybe breaking a low. So we can't really say that this is a swing high, because we don't know. Maybe this is just a pullback. Market's just going to continue moving to the upside. We have no idea as yet. So what I want to do is I just want to take into account this information here that's a little bit more clear for us. And also what's important to us is last week we were identifying this as a range. So obviously we can see that price action broke the low of the range, which is what we were expecting to see, because price still had objectives here. And otherwise, now that we've achieved, or now that we've at least fulfilled those objectives, maybe we'll see the momentum moving to the upside to come up and maybe give us that overall sell. So does that mean maybe I want to buy to sell later? If maybe my balls are big enough, then cool, yeah. But I don't see the probabilities, and I don't like to change my bias, because you know that a lot of the times when you change your bias, in that time that you decide, okay, no, now I want to start, because this whole time, imagine we've been looking for, or we've been waiting for sells this whole time. We've been sitting on our hands. Any buy that presented itself, we've been sitting on. Why buy now when we're still expecting that this overall ascending structure might want to come down to the overall maybe 90% rule or whatever the case? Why buy now? Because the moment we shift our bias to be bullish, we might involve ourselves in or take a lot of unnecessary losses. So what I'll be doing is I'll still be exercising patience on AJ. I don't need to trade, or I don't need to involve myself, because ultimately we know that it's probabilities. If there's an environment that I am not competent enough to make money, obviously there's someone else that's smarter than me that's also involving themselves at the same time that I am, that's probably going to make money. And whose money are they going to take? They're going to take my money, because I am not competent enough maybe to trade that environment. So what I'll do is I don't want to lose money unnecessarily. I would rather exercise that patience and not lose any money rather than to lose money unnecessarily. So AJ, I'm still waiting for the sell bias momentum to come in. Yes, maybe we could buy, whatever the case is, but honestly, if I wanted to buy an AUD base pair, here's AUDCAD that's giving me a much more clear bullish bias setup, much better probabilities for, at least if I buy here, I can expect this 90% rule maybe to want to be risk to reward. Everything is much more better on AUDCAD than it is on AUDJPY. So thinking probabilities, thinking all those things, risk to reward ratio, correlation, all that nice good stuff, just for the purposes of managing your capital, doing what a trader is supposed to be doing anyway. But otherwise, AJ, we bearish bias. I'm still going to exercise patience and wait for price action to come up there. Let's go on to some AU. So AU's just been nasty. AU's just been nasty. So on AU, I don't know if you guys noticed, but AU last week when I did send screenshots of the analysis that we were supposed to do, I didn't send any screenshots on AU. And reason being was because I just decided that AU obviously was still extremely bearish. We were still inside of this structure here. And I don't want to, because I want to be bullish on AU and price action is bearish, I'm just going to exercise patience and I'm just going to wait. I don't mind to wait. So otherwise, still, I'm not going to do anything on AU until structure maybe begins to show me some bias, whatever the case is. So until we get to this POI over here, if you guys want to see from maybe from the overall structure, or I go up to a weekly, the overall structure where that POI is, if you guys just look inside of here, we have a bunch of buyers coming into the market. Where do I want to buy? If I want to be a buyer, I want to buy where I saw other people buying. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for price action to come to where I saw other people buying and look for those reversal structures to see evidence of those buyers maybe coming back into the market. In terms of sell bias probabilities, you guys can continue to catch continuations to the downside if that's the direction that you choose to involve yourself in. So far, we know we sell bias on AJ, but patience there. AU, I'm not going to do anything on AU. Let's go into some Susian. So Susian from last week, this is the analysis that was done, and I sent the screenshot, but nonetheless, we've got an ascending structure first that touch. A lot of sellers involved, which is what we want to see. We've been looking to sell JPY code pairs. So a lot of sellers, obviously, after we saw all of these sellers coming into the market, yes, we did not break below this previous level of resistance over there. Hence, we want to sell as high as possible if ever we want to be sellers. Coming down onto a 4-hour just to look at what's going on here. Maybe we can delete this because this is from last week. We did expect market to break below. let's even just delete this overall support trend line, just so that we focus on the most recent price action. We understand what the overall structure is, an ascending structure. So let's just isolate this 4-hour structure over here. Geez, I forgot I said I'm going to go through the chats before every pair. Cool, there's still nothing in the chats. Awesome. So we're just going to isolate. We see momentum over here. Obviously, we've got a corrective structure inside of this momentum. Where do we want to trade? In this corrective structure, we've got a level of structure that price action has broken above over here and broken below. And obviously, we can at a later point in time come back to retest. So what I've done is I've gone down already on a smaller time frame to find a POI, a point of interest, where I'm expecting maybe that if price action obviously breaks above this high, where do I next want to sell? This is the next area of probability where I can look to sell. So otherwise, for now, since we have this smaller structure going on inside of here, let's go down. It's probably going to be, by the time you look at the market on Monday, if price action wants to tap into this POI, it's probably going to be there already. That's how I was like, on CCN, maybe Friday, I thought maybe it was going to set me up, and then maybe it was we were going to hold through the weekend, but obviously we didn't tap into the POI as yet. So we maybe when market opens, we might do that. But I'm not going to trade until Monday morning, or maybe Monday afternoon. So maybe price action will have already done whatever inside of this POI here. But nonetheless, on a smaller time frame, on a 15-minute, there is obviously a nice big bearish engulfing. Even here on a 1 hour, you guys can see the bearish engulfing over here. Obviously, I want to sell where I see sellers coming into the market with nice momentum. This was a level of resistance that we were naturally expecting maybe price action was going to break above. Why? Because there was an objective for price to fall above this level of resistance. But nonetheless, this is our first area where we want to sell. We're probably going to miss the sell entry. So all I'd say, maybe the plan or the game plan is that we wait to see that if price action does obviously break back below our resistance in this momentum, if as we're breaking back below, obviously there's going to be some structure that's going to be created. Hopefully there'll be a nice point of interest that aligns somewhat with this level of resistance, that we'll obviously be able to wait for price action to come back and retest for the downside momentum. So if obviously maybe price action doesn't break above that extreme high over there, then this is obviously the reduced risk entry, since we might miss the risk entry. If price action chooses to completely destroy this risk entry here and continue to the upside, then the next area that we're waiting for is patience again on the pair, obviously waiting for it to come up here, which is then where we're going to look for reversal structures, double tops, head and shoulders, whatever gives us a reason to sell at our POI. That's CCN. So still the setup is exactly the same. The POIs that we're looking to sell at are still exactly the same. Only difference, or the only update, is now we can also anticipate a reduced risk entry, since we might miss the risk entry. Cool. So CCN is going to be a little bit high on the priority list. So we'll leave this on for our sell bias trading opportunities. So far next week, we only have 2 pairs that are maybe going to be important to us. That's AUDCAD and CCN. So let's go on to some New Zealand dollar CAD. So on New Zealand dollar CAD, taking into account just most recent structure, we've got a descending structure over here. Where are we within the overall context? Support trend line, first touch, second touch, third touch, obviously fourth touch, or whatever the case is, but nonetheless, we are at a support. So naturally, it makes more sense that we look to buy at support rather than to sell. So when we go down to a smaller time frame, we understand overall higher time frame context, where are we and where maybe our probability is better. So dropping down onto a 4 hour, obviously we can see things have been moving to the downside very slowly. So what we've done is we've just taken into account our extreme highs, so that resistance and this resistance over there. We slapped on our resistance trend line. In terms of support trend line, we don't really need one because we understand that we are at a support. What we can see here in the 4 hour structure, just the most recent 4 hour structure. Cool, there's still nothing there in the chat. Just the most recent 4 hour structure. Most recent 4 hour structure, yes, downtrend. But what kind of a downtrend? We're being corrective. Now what we've done is we've isolated obviously our extreme lows, or at least we've just marked them, our extreme lows and our extreme highs. And we can see that price action violated the extreme low and we've broken back into the structure. So what we want to do is we want to take into account this as an important level of structure that maybe in the future we can come back to retest. What do I see here from a 4 hourly perspective? I want to buy where I see other people buying. Where do I see other people buying? I see a nice big bullish engulfing candlestick over here on a 4 hour. It's the wrong way, sorry. Cool. So on a 4-hour, we've basically got a nice momentum shift there, nice big bullish engulfing that we can obviously use for future as a nice place to buy future reference. So obviously, because of all the structures small, so on a smaller time frame, let's just go down on the 1 hour and see if we can refine this area. Look for another bullish engulfing inside of this 4-hour bullish engulfing, where we can obviously say, okay, this is a more refined area where we can obviously expect that if price action comes into this area, this is where I will look for my double bottoms, my inverse head and shoulders, my descending structures, whatever gives me a reason to buy from this POI at a future date in time when price comes back. So looking at the overall setup, does that mean that maybe we can sell in order to buy? I don't like to switch my bias that way. Just follow the higher time frame bias, especially if you're still developing a system and a process and whatever the case is. Just follow the high time frame bias because you'll avoid a lot of unnecessary losses. So looking at what's going on over here, a whole lot of supports there. So anyway, we'll just wait and see for bullish bias, or at least buys anywhere below there. So now we've got a level of structure and we've got a point of interest. As usual, it makes our job simple because we wait for price action to come here. We know that that is support. If price action breaks below the support, we know that below the support, we are looking for our double bottoms, our inverse head and shoulders, whatever. If we don't find it, we're waiting for momentum away from this point of interest above our level of structure. And obviously, we look for our reduced risk entries to come and retest our level of structure. So things become simple when we have a level of structure and a point of interest just outside the level of structure. Otherwise, I'm still very much bullish because of the overall daily structure that we've got going on there. And now, last week, the reason why I didn't trade this pair was because we were still inside of here and I didn't want to take any risk entries on this pair. So now we can look for a reduced risk entry. So since we have evidence of there being buyers, momentum to the upside that's been able to violate a previous resistance or level of structure or area where we saw other sellers coming in and breaking a level of structure and breaking another level of structure, we've just seen buyers coming in, and whoever just bought is more than the amount of sellers that came in from there. And that's kind of what I want to see. Where do I want to buy? I want to buy where I can see evidence of maybe the sellers that broke structure over here. Because I see momentum over there, maybe that's where they came in. And maybe when price action comes back to this price region in between 7.6 whatever and 7.6 whatever, maybe they'll still be interested. Cool. Let's go on to the next pair. So now this pair is a little bit higher on the watch list. We are nice and bullish on New Zealand dollar CAD, almost the same as AUDCAD. So obviously they positively correlated. So manage your risk wisely and then maybe try and just look for a setup that's a little bit more clear that gives you a better signal to take the trade. Let's check what's going on there in the chats. We can't hear clearly anymore the network. I'm not sure. Is the network still an issue? I'm not sure if it's still an issue. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I hope it's better now. But New Zealand dollar yen, I think I'm gonna be quick with New Zealand dollar yen. Maybe I'll just add some context for someone that's maybe trading New Zealand dollar yen, but I'm still not going to trade New Zealand dollar yen because I just think I can still be chopped up a lot inside of here. And because I trade the smaller time frames, I don't want to take a whole lot of losses that makes it difficult for me to get the good RR that's going to keep me plus. So when there's just too much going on, I'd rather stay out. So otherwise, New Zealand dollar yen, we've got extreme highs and extreme lows, and price has been inside extreme highs and extreme lows ever since. So naturally, so you find the best probabilities either trading at your extreme lows or at your extreme highs. But then also, we've got a small structure that we were looking at a long time ago. So a long time ago, we were looking at this small structure here. I don't know how we had it, but we had it a little bit more differently. But nonetheless, we were looking at this small structure over here. But I think just looking at how price action played out, it looked like maybe we are still inside of something else, maybe something bigger, or I don't know, whatever the case is. But nonetheless, it looked like price action maybe wasn't reacting from anything inside of here, because I didn't see any place where price would have a reason to want to come down here. But maybe we were just reacting to the support trend line over here. So what I want to do is when I'm trading New Zealand dollar yen, maybe I also want to consider that this is probably an area where there's maybe a whole lot of buyers sitting there. And obviously this area is kind of close to our support. So maybe price action is going to want to come up inside of here, or I don't know. But anyway, New Zealand dollar yen, we're inside a range and we're not anywhere close to the extreme high or the extreme low of the range. So the potential for me to be chopped around as much as price wishes is a little bit higher than I would like. So I'm just going to still continue to stay out of Swiss yen and not do anything. I don't even have a bias. I don't understand what's going on. I wouldn't trade it because I don't understand what's going on. So I'll just wait until things become a little bit more clear and I can make sense and be able to trade with better probabilities than what I see now. So on US30, let's go on to the last pair. I don't know who was drawing here. I saw your name, but I forgot your name. I think it was Lisejo. Let me see if you're here. Lisejo, you're here. Stop drawing on the screen, Lisejo. Otherwise, let's continue. Let's continue, guys. So on US30, we still got a larger structure. Let me just do this and then do that. Cool. So on US30, daily there's and I don't think it's relevant anymore. But there is this daily structure that I think we've been trying to trade or trading or using this kind of a daily structure as some sort of a reference for our decision making. I'm not sure if maybe we can still use this structure. If I don't know. I don't feel like price action maybe we're gonna come down this low, but we never know. But for now, maybe let's not, we'll just leave it on there just so that we understand what's going on higher time frame. But on a smaller time frame, I think let's just delete everything that's going on inside of here because we don't care. We don't want to know what we did last week. Let's just take into account just the most recent price action and reference what's going on now and make our decisions based off what's going on now. Zoom is saying that we'll end in 10 minutes. Cool, I'll be done in 9. So anyway, we've got a support over here. And what we can see is that price action is being corrective around this support, right? We've broken below, we've broken back above, we've broken back below, we've broken back above. So what I'm going to be doing naturally, because I can see corrective price action here, when I drop down on the smaller time frames, I'm going to be expecting either a range or a corrective or something, because I can see that on the high time frame, we are being corrective there. So otherwise, let's also go, let's drop down onto a 4-hour. I want to delete this line over here because it's going to make us make funny decisions. Let's just delete that. What I also want to do is I want to take into account that yes, our 4-hour structure is moving down. So let's just take into account what our extreme highs are, whatever extreme resistance we have there. We'll take that into account just so that we can try and get an idea of, okay, is this trend line very steep? Is this trend line very gentle? We'll get an idea of, okay, are the sellers being aggressive right now or are they being gentle or whatever the case is? But otherwise, we do understand that we're being corrective around that support. So naturally, I know that, okay, here, maybe what's going on is some sort of a corrective structure. So what I want to do is I want to prime my eyes maybe to look to trade a corrective structure. So taking into account whatever extreme resistance we have over there and whatever extreme support we have over here, this even looks nasty. Let's just do this. That just looks absolutely nasty. Let's just take into account our extreme supports there. We'll just draw a horizontal line there. And then here, obviously, just use your eyes and see that this is the extreme high, or this is the highest high that we've got now. So extreme lows and extreme highs. Where's price action right now? Price action is currently inside a 4-hour. All this nice bullish momentum, we're currently inside of those extreme lows and those extreme highs. Now, what I want to do is I want to give you guys context as to why we were bullish last week and what I'm going to be doing going into this into next week to try and manage to trade this range, because it's clear I'm stuck inside of a range. Price is moving sideways. Price can chop me however it wants to, because there is no direction from a higher time frame perspective, from a 4-hour perspective at least. So last week, what we were looking at was there was this small descending structure or whatever. Obviously, whatever we were looking at there, some sellers market, and we saw a whole bunch of buyers coming into this market, right? Now, over a long space of time, we had a support area that we had broken below, broken above, and obviously we were waiting for price action to come back and retest that area for upside continuation. Now that we've retested this area for upside continuation, and we can also see on a 4-hour perspective, we have a resistance, right? Price action broke a support to create a new lower low. Price action then broke a resistance to create a new higher high. Did we then manage to break and create a new low? No. So what that then tells me is that the buyers that came into the market here, maybe they're still inside the market. What do I see here? I see a whole lot of bullish momentum. So what I naturally want to do is I want to trade maybe in the direction of this new momentum that I'm seeing now. And so because we're inside of the range, what I have to deal with is I have to just deal with the structure that I have on a smaller time frame, which is obviously maybe my break and my retest or whatever the case is there. But what I want to do is I want to trade breaks and retests. I want to go down and I just want to look for evidence of where I see other people buying. I want to buy there. I will go as low as to the point that I see a bullish engulfing. If I don't see any bullish engulfing, I'll go in the lower time frame until I find one at an area that aligns with some sort of support or some sort of a resistance where price maybe hasn't tapped into the market. Okay, cool, there's nothing. So otherwise, since there's nothing there, all I'm going to have to do is I'm just going to have to wait for a structure to form. If I don't see any structure that allows me to trade, for example, we've got a break and a retest area here. We've got a resistance. We know that maybe at resistance, we're expecting buyers to come into the market. Naturally, what am I doing on a smaller time frame? I'm waiting for chart patterns because a chart pattern is going to confirm my thoughts, my assumptions on what should happen at this resistance. The chart pattern price action is going to confirm that. So if I do see, maybe for example, my descending structure, now I have my descending structure presents that third touch area that increases my probability for taking a trade at this area, what I assume to be a POI. So all I'm going to do is just wait for a structure that confirms my bias at this level of structure. Descending structure, double bottom, inverse head and shoulders, whatever gives me a reason to buy. I'm 100% nice and bullish. I want to trade in the direction of this momentum that we see, this most recent momentum that also maybe we can say has been able to break some resistance areas, maybe not the extreme high as yet. But we're not surprised because we're stuck inside of a range. Cool. So I think that's the overall bias. So for next week, only 4 pairs, I guess, that are going to be high on the watch list for us. Aussie CAD and New Zealand dollar CAD, we are nice and bullish. Please remember that there is obviously these pairs are positively correlated. So manage your risk if you're going to be involved in both of those pairs. Because if there's CAD news or whatever, and one of them sells, you can bet that they're probably both going to sell off if there's CAD related news or if it's a CAD related move. So manage your risk between the two. Otherwise, Swiss yen, we're nice and bearish. Remember that price action, maybe by the time we look at market on Monday, might have tapped into that bearish POI. So we'll function. Obviously, if price action breaks back below our extreme resistance, then we're looking for a reduced risk entry. On US30, we're waiting for structure to confirm our bullish bias to give us reasons to be bull, or rather to be buyers at this previous resistance that we assume could be treated as support. 100% done. No stress there, Lisego. I see you saying my bad. No stress, man. Maybe you were just testing out the features on Zoom. Who knows, man? It's all good. It's all good. But otherwise, guys, we're 100% done with the analysis this week. No hiccups, no network issues besides that one sound issue. So I'm happy. You guys are all up to date. You guys know my thought processes, what I'm going to be doing next week, which directions I'm looking to trade, and what are the reasons or what's going to allow me to actually involve myself in those trades. So otherwise, let there be peace, guys. Let there be peace. Let me not speak for a long time. Let me go and relax. Saturday, guys. Enjoy the rest of your guys' weekend, guys. Cheers.